Okay, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. This is an Ignite stage event hosted by PEDRR, the Partnership for Environment and Disaster Risk Reduction. We have a panel of speakers that have just completed a roundtable on watershed management and urban resilience, and this is an additional time to ask questions, explore certain issues a bit more deeply. I'm just going to quickly introduce the panelists and then open the floor right away for questions from the floor. On the far side, Mr. Asia Tridaki, who is a special administrator for Nadi and Sigatoka town councils in Fiji. Next to him is Jean-Claude Eudes, Director General of the Loire River Basin Authority in France. Next is Mr. Mark Smith, who is Director of the IUCN Global Water Program. Next, Mrs. Shraddha Jadhav, who is the Mayor of the City of Mumbai, India. And then her colleague. And then Mr. Rivera Arancibia, who is the Mayor of Hualpen in Chile. So we have been discussing the role of integrated watershed management as a crucial issue for urban resilience, particularly in the face of growing urbanization. We've had a discussion about the different types of approaches our different panelists have taken. I'm going to see if there are any immediate questions on the floor, and if not, I can propose one or two. But does anybody want to, that was in the previous discussion or who is new to the discussion, have a question that they would like to pose to one of the panelists? No, not yet. Okay, well, fine. Then I'd like to ask, beginning with Monsieur Tridaki, but any of the mayors. You mentioned that you have been working for almost 30 or 40 years trying to look ahead to risks from watershed degradation and management. What were maybe one or two of the major obstacles that you faced, and how did you find a solution? What solution did you find to them? We have them. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. That's the fact, just because the central government was the one that we always relied to in terms of addressing developments and also addressing issues that we come across. And I think in the olden days, the watershed was really the main source of our good and livelihood. And over the years, through the continuous urbanization and the sudden growth, that has really impacted on our watershed. And that is something that we've started to try and voice to the central government. In the little nations like Fiji, we still don't have enough funds ourselves, but we continue to rely on our central government. But then we were not heard, and that is why we continue to suffer as developments continue to take place in uncontrolled and unplanned fashion. Just because Nadi is the center of tourism, and that has driven the economic activities in Fiji. As the shift of economic activities have shifted to Nadi, that created a lot of unplanned developments. That has really impacted a lot in our watershed, and we suffered a lot, and that has resulted in that big flood in 2009 that we have severe damages. And we finally had been heard, finally, because government started to realize how important Nadi is to the economic contribution for the country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any of the other mayors that would like to respond to that question? Or Mr. Eudes, of course.
Not the mayor, but to answer the question, I think it's something important has been said. In the same way, we have noticed a shift from pure protection to prevention measures, and today we see the positive result of this shift in the mind of many of local authorities. There's been a shift from security questions to competitiveness issues. They have become more and more aware that beyond the security issue, what was at stake basically was the capacity of the territory to survive in a way. And moving from the security issue to the competitiveness issue in a way has facilitated the integration of all the process in major cities and also in smaller cities. But the way things are being perceived has affected the way they are practically dealt with, because with the way we perceive things, we have the whole set of rules, stimulation, financial instruments. And when you start moving from one policy to the other, there's plenty of opportunity to find new actors, to find new support. And the way you perceive things is also a way to bring other stakeholders in the process.
Thank you. Mumbai basically is a very complex city. Let me just explain you about Mumbai briefly. I already told in my presentation also. Mumbai is the financial capital of the country. We are generating 33% of the national revenue from Mumbai. Till 2005, Mumbaikars and the Mumbai administration was not much concerned about the watershed management. 2005, what we have noticed is there was a very heavy rainfall, that is almost 45% of the annual average rainfall in just 12 hours. And that was an eye-opening for everybody. And after that, we have decided to widen and deepen the major water carrier channels. And we have done a lot of work in the various rivers, water channels. And we got a very good result last year, 2009. The average rainfall of Mumbai was 50% above the average rainfall. The total rainfall was 3,000 plus millimeter, that is 150%. But generally till 2005, what we was observing is every year, city was to get standstill for 2 or 3 days, every year during monsoon. But last year, in spite of 152% of rainfall, city was not standstill for a single day. So that was the achievement. So that was, I wanted to present it to you. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's the major obstacles that he had in facing, major obstacles faced in trying to promote watershed
management. Bueno, muchas gracias. Los mayores retos que en el caso de la localidad nuestra ha tenido que enfrentar frente a todos estos acontecimientos ha sido una legislación nacional que no guarda relación con los momentos que se están viviendo. Existe un Ministerio de Obras Públicas y dentro de ese Ministerio de Obras Públicas existe la Dirección General de Aguas y Recursos Hídricos. Y esta muchas veces tiene un marco jurídico re complicado o difícil de poder aplicar. Y en ese contexto...
I think one of the major challenges that the major had to face was related to the legislation, which was not according to the reality at that moment. And the major mentioned that he has to face difficulties related to the framework within the ministry.
Y eso hace que las realidades y los acontecimientos no deseados sean tratados con bastante complejidad.
And because of that, all the events that happened had to treat it was difficult to treat all the events and the disasters that happened.
Pero en el caso personal, teniendo a lo mejor un liderazgo un poquito irreverente,
but based on my personal experience,
me atreví en el momento mismo del terremoto, como lo decía, a hacer 50 punteras sin autorizaciones, sin permiso y tratar de entregar agua a la población.
I took the ball to move and without permission from the government, I drill holes to give water to the population.
Ahora, yo creo que hay que tener una legislación, porque la experiencia vivida hace que hay que tener una legislación que pueda realmente resolver problemas como los que hoy día el mundo está viviendo, o los que el mundo está viviendo.
And he thinks that it's very important to have legislation according to the problems that the war is facing now.
Eso.
Thank you.
Any questions from the floor? All right, I've got another one then. I'll keep going. Following on, so what I understood is either a major disaster sparked or encouraged public interest, or it was a realization of the economic stakes in an area. Following that and the discussion we began on the payment for ecosystem services, I'd like to ask the panel your thoughts about how well are we capturing the value of natural systems in terms of public decision making. Do you think that there is enough information for decision makers to make the trade-offs necessary sometimes in urban planning in a way that allows a space for natural or soft solutions in combination with what we know in terms of engineering solutions? Anybody first? Please, Mark.
Is this on? I think that the short answer to your question is, in relation to do we know enough, is to be able to capture that value more effectively is no. And I think in particular what's missing is the tools that can deliver that knowledge, as well as enable people like those sitting on this panel to start working with the trade-offs and saying, if we combine a built infrastructure approach with a mix of restoration of ecosystems, of investing in the maintenance of wetlands for flood attenuation, for example. What does that mean in terms of what I have to invest? How much money do I have to spend? How much damage do I avoid? How much money do I save? And I think being able to, for the decision makers at the highest level to be able to make those kinds of decisions, they need information and they need tools for bringing together the ecosystem values with the built infrastructure values and all that goes with that. And my perception would be that those tools aren't ready to build those portfolios like that. Yeah.
And just perhaps very quickly, are there clear paths of where we need to go to make sure those tools are available? Is it still in the academic area? Are we to a point where we can just better document real-life examples? Perhaps Mr. Oud could talk about the project, and I think the Upper Loire, where you're trying to use natural sources. Where can we go so we can get there?
Could I answer that by posing a question to the other panelists? Which what we would like to do in IUCN is to work actively in an action learning mode with these kinds of decision makers to build those tools together. Yeah.
I think we could use an example to show how the way things are evolving slowly but steadily in the same direction. If we take into consideration the issue of restoration of river flow and continuity, when you look at the situation, for example, today, many of us start discussing a lot about dam decommissioning. And there's two ways of addressing the issue. Either you oppose it, or you try to find what is best in it and can also be a source of progress. And I will use two examples. In some cases, restoration of river flow can be an incentive for innovative, how could I say, green, blue infrastructure. But in order to achieve this, you need to combine effects. it's not a one-side solution. Very often it's a complex solution. In this case, it was possible to cancel the blocking effect of two dams by building a passage facility through an island. But this was made financially possible because at the same time we were opening the way to fish migration. At the same time, we were creating a kind of sport infrastructure for leisure activities, notably canoe, kayak. So the infrastructure went both ways. And the second way managed to bring the financial instrument to solve the problem we were confronted with. With the other case, which is symbolically much more complex, because as I said, this started with the fight between those who wanted to build the dam and those who said there's no use building the dam. And this dating back to the 1980s, so it's been a long discussion. Today, the issue is making people aware of course, the benefits of this man and biosphere reserve at this stage, but not for the people there only. And we fall back on the issue of solidarity, but for the whole river basin, from the upper basin till the lower basin. And only when you look at the whole system like this, you can find a kind of economic incentive to do so.
Okay, I think we have 2 minutes. We have 2 minutes. Would anyone else like to respond to that question?
I think, as Mr. Smith has alluded to, in 90 IUCN is doing some studies in our watershed and river systems, and that is something that would be very important for us to understand. Species that are present there and the local knowledge that we used to have and understand what were the marine life that were present. But some measures that have been taken place is the dredging, which started from out into the sea and then it comes up inland, but it only addresses the lower catchment. And that also has seems to bring back some marine life, more activities, and big fishes are entering our rivers now. So there's more salinity in the river also. And I think combination of all these studies and measures, it's really a complex issue too. And I think nature is a complex thing to understand, but I think if we continue, if we are passionate about it, we will be able to try and strike that balance back. Thanks.
Great. Any other? Okay. And then we have just a minute, so if you could give us our closing.
Solo tenemos 1 minuto y si podría darnos la parte de la conclusión nada más.
Bueno, la valoración de los ecosistemas en situaciones de catástrofe son fundamentales. Para nosotros las vertientes naturales, los ríos, jugaron en un terremoto 8,8 un rol bastante importante, puesto que fueron las fuentes más cercanas que nos permitió darle agua a la población por casi 10 días.
The value of ecosystem was a key point after the disaster happened, and the watershed, the rivers, was essential because that we allowed us to give water to the population.
Great. Well, let me thank the panelists once again. Where we're getting interference here. There we go. Thanks. For your contributions. Thank you for your attention. And that closes this Ignite event. Thank you. Made it under the gong.